Good morning, traders. I'm Dennis Dick.
My name's Jake LeCure. Welcome to Pre-Market Info.
Joel is away for the next couple of days, so we do have Jake, and we thank you for being on with us here, Jake. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for having me. It's always a lot of fun to hop onto the show. So, excited to have a chance to take a crack at it.
We are looking at a chart of Citigroup here right now. They just reported earnings a few minutes ago, around 8 a.m. Eastern. Stock reported a buck 25 versus a buck 18, so they beat on the bottom line. Reported 20.5 billion versus 19.79 billion on the top line. Beat on the top, beat on the bottom. Stock is rallying about 90 cents here this morning. Jake, what are you seeing on the charts there?
Well, you're seeing some pre-market strength there. It kind of rose pretty heavily on the earnings and then let out a little bit of air. So, looking for some strength there. And then if you go back to the daily, you're just seeing the stock really rallying throughout the year. So, it was a fairly decent report, and I think it's going to keep the kind of follow the trend with the rest of the financials there.
Go back to the pre-market chart on that Citigroup just for a
Sure.
second, because we had the high in the pre-market. We always talk about these levels on the show. 52.03 was the high in the pre-market. If we go back to, I'm just trying to grab the date here itself. Um, Actually, if we go back to June the 10th, we had a high of 52.12, so we ticked up just above. But these big whole numbers, whenever you're trading these things, if you're trading them in the regular session, the whole numbers, especially on earnings days, sometimes have a lot of relevance because you have big institutions that just are simple and they just throw out big whole numbers and they say, gets up to 52, sell me a block, gets up to 53, sell me another block. So that's why the whole numbers come into play. And again here, even in the pre-market, the whole number did come into play as it rallied all the way up to 52.03. Jake, you did say we were seeing some strength in some other financials here this morning off of these Citigroup numbers. Goldman Sachs, for instance, here, GS is up, trading up at 161.30 right now. Ticked up as high as 162 here in the pre-market. So Goldman Sachs is showing some strength. JP Morgan, JPM is showing some strength. It's up about 50 cents here right now at 55.40. We've got Bank America trading up nicely here too at 13.92 here in the pre-market. Stopping at Bank America for a second because that is just off the 52-week high at 13.99. It has ticked up to 13.94 here in the pre-market, so about a nickel off that high. But again, just playing that whole number theory, that whole $14 area probably has some institutional resistance there because it has not been to $14. I just got to go back here. Looking back to 2011. So it's been a long time since it's been up here, basically almost 2-year highs for Bank America. So I'd expect a little initial resistance on that one at 14.
Huge psychological level there. So, yeah, definitely glad you pointed that one out.
Jake, also we've got, just before we go, and we're going to do a little bit of an earnings preview here today, but I just wanted to mention the AT&T is buying Leap Wireless here, LEAP, for $15 a share in cash. They're also going to be retaining the ability to sell part of the 700 megahertz AP block. This is all technical stuff for me. Licensed in Chicago from the Benzinga Pro. Could be worth up to another $2 a share. So they're valuing this over 17, but they're also thinking that there could be more suitors for this company too. Stock is trading up at 17.66, so trading basically above where you would think the price should be trading right now.
It is just like flying upwards there. You really saw some serious movement after the close on Friday. One thing we did catch here on the Pro News Desk is that there was a huge options block bought early in the day. Someone bought 3,800 calls way out of the money at 12 cents a piece. So I think somebody's going to be going to jail pretty soon.
Somebody's going to be. You gotta love these big option buys before a merger's announced.
I just don't understand how someone thinks they can get away with
Maybe
that.
he
But
just maybe it was just went to a psychic or something and just got
oh, yeah.
a really good psychic
On
up
a whim decided to
there.
buy some way out of the money calls. Yeah, incredible. But huge rally there. Obviously, pricing in some possible counter bids. I think the focus there could be Verizon possibly given an offer there that could counter AT&T's bid because Leap is kind of like the last acquisition target in that space. So keeping an eye out this week for possible counter offers.
Well, regardless, Leap shareholders are pretty happy here this morning because the stock is up 120%. Let's do a little preview of the earnings that we do have on tap. Obviously, Citigroup just reported here this morning. We're going to highlight the big ones tomorrow. We got a few big ones there, Jake. We got Johnson and Johnson's going to report. Obviously, a stock that we talk about a lot on the pre-market info show. Interesting enough, you go to the pre-market chart there. Just click back over to the pre-market chart. Right at the close on Friday, you had a pretty crazy close on a lot of S&P stocks. There was some large buy imbalances. Some institution wanted in at the close, and they wanted in across the board, and they were buying everything, and I mean everything, in the last couple of minutes there of trade and on the closing print. Johnson & Johnson gapped up on the closing print. It kind of ran a little bit as this buy imbalance was pressing the stock, so it started running with about 10-15 minutes to go, ran up from 89.75, ran up to 89.90, and then gapped up to 89.99, which is the 52-week and I believe all-time high for Johnson & Johnson. So it's ticking there, but again, we always talk about these big hole numbers. 90, absolutely enormous on this stock. I can see 184,000 shares being offered there in the New York book. That liquidity obviously becomes active at 9:30, and that's why the stock is actually not trading up here this morning. It's trading down 2 cents despite the S&P futures being up 4. So Johnson & Johnson's got a big hurdle to climb to get over that 90, but we do have earnings tomorrow, and a lot of times you see these earnings run-ups, so I wouldn't be surprised if right off the hop it's got a running start at it that it could take out that 90. I don't expect it to trade much above it in the pre-market, but in the regular session, if it can take out the 90, then it starts to open up. But obviously that's the first big major resistance point, which is right there. You've also got Coca-Cola, which is going to report earnings tomorrow morning as well. KO stock trading up about 18 cents here right now in the pre-market at 41.20. Goldman Sachs and Yahoo too. You got any thoughts on a few of these there, Jake?
I mean, we've got you've seen some pretty decent strength in the financials. I know you mentioned that Goldman Sachs is reporting this week.
Yeah,
We do see, Citigroup did pretty well. J.P. Morgan did pretty well. As did Wells Fargo. I mean,
yeah.
J.P. Morgan came in line on Friday. Wells Fargo had a nice beat. Mortgage originations looking good, which I know is not exactly the Goldman Sachs game, but I think we're going to see some strength in financials. Obviously it's just my opinion, but it looks like things are turning around for the financials. They're doing pretty well despite the increased regulation. I think Jamie Dimon gave some good guidance on Friday during his interview on CNBC, where he really said that it's going to be another year before the banks really understand how to deal with these new capital requirements. But once they do, they're going to be even stronger than they were before. And despite the economy rebound, kind of bringing back interest rates, it's going to end up helping lending in the long run, just simply because the economy is going to be stronger.
Yeah, in the financials, you've got Goldman reporting Tuesday. You've got Bank America, which is BAC, reporting on Wednesday. You've got Morgan Stanley reporting on Thursday. So all the big guns coming out here reporting this week from the financials. Obviously, like you said, we saw JP Morgan, we saw Wells, we saw Citigroup's earnings. They were all good, so it's hard to expect that Morgan and Goldman and Bank America aren't going to show strong numbers as well. Goldman, Morgan Stanley's a little bit different businesses, but still big financial institutions there as well. So showing strength like in the financial sector, and I wouldn't be surprised with Goldman reporting tomorrow if you see some strength in GS here today, because GS actually trading up here in the pre-market. If we go to the pre-market chart, it's up at 161.90, obviously on the back of those Citigroup earnings, but also people anticipating that tomorrow's earnings are going to be pretty good. If you go out a little bit farther on the chart, Jake, just to the last couple of months there on Goldman Sachs, we've had some major resistance though. Just in this whole 165 to 166 area, we had multiple tops in late May and early June in the 166 area. We are $4 away from there, but if for whatever reason Goldman Sachs reports pretty decent numbers and starts to get a pop up in that area tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the first area where Goldman Sachs does find some initial resistance. Also tomorrow, after the bell, we're going to have Yahoo's earnings, YHOO. That stock has just been on a tear. It's actually just slightly off its 52-week high right now. The 52-week high is 27.68. Jake, if we can just grab the Yahoo chart, 27.68 is where Yahoo has had a 52-week high back on May the 15th. It is right close to there right now. The pre-market here this morning trading at 27.40, just ticked up to 27.50 actually. So Yahoo could actually test that 52-week high today.
auto and gas declined.
We've also got
Sorry, we got a report coming in here real quick.
sure.
Matt Cannon's just doing real quick there. So
6%, beating the survey of 5.0%. Also note that retail sales in May was revised lower to 0.5% from 0.6%, and that the control group was revised down to 0.2% growth in total.
all right, so just covering that key count report there.
Sorry about the audio, a
Uh,
little quiet there, but yeah. So we've got the S&P futures here just kind of hanging out. We're up 3 points here, which actually fair value is up about three. So we're actually about flat overall if you're looking at the cash close on the S&P futures here. It's been a quiet session really for the S&P futures. We'll come back to the earnings just in a second, but we've only had a 6 point range here overnight. So it's very quiet here this morning from the S&P futures, despite having the Citigroup and the strength in the financials. Overall, it's kind of looking quiet. Just quickly, just to talk about a couple other stocks that are going to report earnings here this week. You've got Intel going to report on Wednesday. You've also got eBay going to report Wednesday, American Express going to report Wednesday, and we got a big one, which I'll just stop at for a second. IBM going to report on Wednesday here as well. IBM, last time they reported back in April, we had the huge gap down from 206 all the way down to 196. Couple days later it bottomed, and that was actually the bottom of the year so far, down at 187.68. We have bounced back. We did bounce back after that, but we've shown weakness here in the last month. Basically going to the earnings, IBM is hanging out at the lows. So the market probably not expecting the IBM numbers to be awesome, or it would be running up into it, and it's been somewhat weak. So sometimes those those lower expectations, if IBM comes out and does okay, stock could pop. So unlike some of these financials that probably have to blow it out of the water, IBM, as long as they're okay, might be okay. Obviously, if they miss though, then you'd look at that 52-week low as the next possible support level. If that gets taken out, it could be ugly for IBM. So big up.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you have some other big techs running this week. You do have Google and
Yep.
Microsoft. I know you guys really
Thursday.
like to dive in Microsoft there. I don't know what you're thinking for that earnings report, but I know that that's pretty big with a lot of the big tech names coming out this week.
Microsoft has been on a run, and we are right there at the 52-week high. It's funny, it's been struggling here at this whole 35.74 area. We got up 35.74 back on June the 4th. We got up to 35.78 on June the 7th. Just on Friday, or on Thursday, we got up to 35.77, and then yesterday we got up at 35.73. So you basically have four highs here within about 7 or 8 cents. If we can start getting up above 35.80, I would say, and start making a run for that 36, which could happen this week ahead of the earnings, because sometimes you get these earnings run, and it is looking like it's ready to break out. So if we do see a little bit of strength, then obviously we've got 3 days before the earnings report on Thursday. So, and actually I think it's after the close, so you basically have 4 trading sessions here. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some strength in Microsoft ahead of those earnings. If obviously, after the earnings, it all depends on what they're saying, but Microsoft has actually reported well last quarter, and I wouldn't be surprised if they show some strength here again. Also, Google, you were saying there, Jake, just to go to their charts for a second. Google obviously made a new 52-week high, making a new 52-week high again here this morning. It's up another $2.50 at 925.5, trading up 2.5 points here this morning. So Google looking strong into their earnings report as well. The other big ones. Yeah, go ahead, there, Jake.
We do also have 2 major transports coming out this week, which is CSX and Union Pacific. There are some good economic indicators. I know didn't mean to hit Credit Suisse there, CSX, the rail rail company there. Yep. And basically just 2 big, major transport providers there, and great economic indicators. Had that high of 26.36, and it looks like it's kind of been pulling back a little bit, but I know one of our guys here loves to watch those as a play on the shale gas phenomena. So
we are into a big earnings week here for sure. You've got Verizon on Thursday, you've got Chipotle on Thursday, you've got AMD on Thursday, you've also got on Friday, you've got General Electric, which is one we talk about a lot on the show. Major component in the S&P. GE, interesting enough, I'm going to stop there just for a second. On Friday, it opened at $24, which was the high. Joel would laugh at me. I'm kicking myself because I actually sold that high. I sold $24, but the scalper that I am, I ended up covering at 23.94. Took a quick 6 cents on it only, and obviously the stock kept going down, so I was kicking myself that I didn't hold on a little bit more than that on the GE. But it did close 23.76. It's trading up at 23.82. I will tell you that $24 still remains major resistance despite opening at it on Friday. Still institutional size of over 400,000 shares up there, which is significant for GE. So I would expect it to struggle in the 23.90s here again as you get those short-term traders leaning on that whole $24 area. I think we've got four trading sessions before GE reports, so it could later in the week get a run to take out that 24, but I think today it might struggle in that area if it gets up there. Quickly, Jake, we should go to the upgrades and downgrades because there is a few big ones I wanted to highlight here today. You've got Harley Davidson, which is HOG. Wedbush is downgrading Hog this morning. 55 is where it's offered at right now, so it's offered down 40 cents on that downgrade. They must be looking at technicals there over at Wedbush because it had a triple top here. If we look on the charts, 56.14 topped out on July the 1st, July the 2nd topped out at 56.13, and then on Friday it topped out at 56.03. So you've got a lot of tops there in the hog, and obviously that's showing some resistance up there in the whole 56 area. And I think it's going to show a little bit of weakness here today with that downgrade from Wedbush. Any thoughts on the hog?
I mean, I think it's interesting that you have that downgrade there, and it's really just barely even ticking. I mean, just a couple of bids there. If you kind of pull it out to a longer term chart there, you can see that it's been kind of just slowly melting higher. Hit that high at 59.84. Really doesn't want to break that $60 level. It's definitely something to take into account for today's session. I think that you're seeing a couple of bids down. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit stronger fall as the session opens.
Yeah, a lot of times in the pre-market, especially on these, Hog isn't a major component. It's a major company though, but a lot of times their pre-market isn't very active. It's only traded 500 shares. 55.65 has been the only trade here in the pre-market, but the best bid is down at 54.70, which is $1.20 lower. So just because it ticked at 55.65 doesn't mean it's going to open there at 9:30. In all likelihood, it's probably going to open lower because the market right now, pre-market, is pricing at 54.70 to 55.55. So that's telling me it's probably going to open up around that $55 marker. What happens after that is still a guess, but like I've said in the past, usually these downgrades, Wedbush isn't major, but pretty major brokerage house. So I wouldn't be surprised if it knocked 1 or 2% off the price here today. And obviously you have the S&P futures trading up 3.5, so that puts a little bit upward pressure on it, but overall that downgrade is going to keep the pressure on the stock probably, at least off the open. You've also got, a little late to the party here, JP Morgan downgrading UPS here today. Obviously UPS, with the earnings warning there, got absolutely murdered on Friday. Traded down as low as 85.48. It's trading there right now off this JP Morgan downgrade, just ticked at 85.55. Offered at 85.55, so I'd keep an eye on Friday's low at 85.48. If it takes that out, then you got to go down a bit lower. You had a low on the 24th of June at 84.70 and another one at 84.38. So I don't see much, maybe a little bit at the 85 whole number, which probably could get tested here today, especially since it's getting a downgrade from JP Morgan. But I probably see a little bit of continued weakness here in UPS because it's not really a driver here now. They've just warned. People are interested in other companies right now, obviously. So UPS could show a little bit of continued weakness here today, especially with the JP Morgan downgrade. You've also got BMO Capital downgrading. It seems like every day somebody is downgrading the miners. Newmont and KGC, which is NEM, and KGC, Kinross Gold, both getting downgraded at BMO Capital. Obviously, those things are trading more off gold price, but gold is basically flat here this morning. The GLD is trading only down 13 cents. If we do go to the chart of Newmont, NEM, because it's one we talk about quite a bit, we did say that it potentially bottomed there, 26.47 here the other day. It got a nice pop on Thursday, up to 28.30. It's pulled back a bit. That's the bogey I would keep an eye on. It's a 26.47. That whole 26.5 seems to get under in the 26 handle. It seems to find buyers. As long as it stays above 26.47, there's the potential that we've seen a short-term bottom. But obviously, we've tried looking at bottoms in these gold stocks before, and it seems like they hang out for a few days, bounce for a few days, and then drift lower, and eventually take out the lows again. The Barrick Gold has held up a little bit better than the Newmont here over the last 3 days. Probably just because it's been killed so much. We bring up the chart, it's ABX, and stock is trading up here about a dime this morning in the whole $15 area. It bottomed 5 sessions ago at 13.43. I think that was kind of a washout day for Barrick. So, and obviously it's bounced since then. I think Barrick may have seen its short-term lows. I'm a little more confident in a Barrick low than I am in an NEM low. But again, we've known these are very dependent on what the price of gold is doing. Obviously, if gold starts to hit the skids again, these things will start approaching those lows again. Jake, that's really all we've got here. Just going back to the S&P futures, like I said, we are very quiet here this morning. Are there any thoughts? What are you thinking on the S&P futures today? Can we get up there and test the highs that we made there just a while ago?
I mean, I think we've got to get a cooling off period sometime, but I don't see anything that's really going to be holding us back today. And I think as we've seen in recent months, the markets want to go higher. So I wouldn't be surprised if if the markets decide to test the highs once again. I mean, you're seeing some strength in the free market here, up what is it? 3.75 points right now, and I mean it's starting to kind of rally fairly strong. So I mean I wouldn't be surprised if we tested those highs again. Honestly, seeing a nice little strength right now. A little flat, but heading upwards. So I think a little bit of strength today would be warranted.
And we do have a lot of catalysts here, being in the heart of earnings season coming into this week, and so many major S&P components reporting earnings. So obviously it depends on the earnings more than anything here. We always say technicals kind of take a back seat to fundamentals here, and you will be getting some major fundamental news, obviously starting with Johnson Johnson, Coke, and Goldman Sachs here tomorrow. So that'll be more of the dictator here. Obviously, if those companies report good earnings, that could continue to drive us up to the highs. If they start to disappoint, then the market might start to get nervous. That's our show for today, guys. Have a great trading session, and we'll be back at you